Hello everyone, Tom Morley here from FOSS365 with the second tutorial on chroma keying in the Natron compositor. This video will be a continuation of the previous video, and we will talk about blue screening in this video as well as color matching our source material to the background. So let's get started. Okay, if you watched the previous video, you already have the source video files we need. It will be the plane and the snow video file. If you didn't watch the previous one and you're just joining us now, a description will be placed below for where you can find the video files. So the first thing we need to do is convert the MP4 file into the sequence of images. So let's go ahead and fire up Natron. Let's open up the project location that we created in the previous video. Let's drag over the airplane video. It will connect to our viewer. We are only going to use 250 frames here, so let's go from frame 1 to 250. We need to create a write node, so let's go ahead and press W here, and let's find the project folder, which is the plane folder, to drop our images in. And it will not be a file, it's going to be a sequence of images. Let's type in plane, 3 hashtags for the numeric value .png, press enter. So in the last video we didn't talk too much about compression and color depth, but if we want to keep the best quality possible, we want to turn off compression so that we don't recompress the images when we convert them. And 8-bit is probably good enough for converting an MP4 file, but we will use the best quality possible by turning that to 16-bit depth. And we will drop this down and connect it, and we should be good to go. We have plane for the name, we have 250 as the last frame, and we are good to go. Let's go ahead and click render, and it should be rendering to our plane folder. Let's take a look and make sure it is, so we are good to go. We'll come back after it's done converting all those files. Okay, the plane video footage has finished converting, so let's go back to the node graph and delete the video file. Okay, the next thing we need to do is convert the snow video file. So let's drag it and drop it in here. Let's connect it. Let's make sure that we're only dealing with frame 1 to 250. Let's double left click on the write node, which brings the property window up to the upper right. And let's change the file location for the images to the snow directory. Let's call it snow. 3 hashtags .png. Now we want to make sure the compression level is 0. And the bit depth is 16. So snow 16, no compression, and 1 through 250. We should be good to go. Scroll up to the top and click render. Check that it's working. It is. And I'll come back after it's done. The task is complete, so we can go back to the node graph, delete the read node, and we're ready to get started. Let's drag our plane images down in here, which automatically connected to the viewer. That's fine. And let's drag the snow images down here as well. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to add a keyer. So make sure the plane images are selected, right click, and let's go to keyer and Chroma Key. And we know the Chroma Key node needs a source and a background, so we will put them in there. We'll move this viewer over for now. And we're not using a green screen, we're using a blue screen. And as soon as we connect these up, you can see over here, maybe not in the YouTube video, I'm not sure how much it will show, but we're not getting a clean blue background here. So what we want to do is we want to select the plane and press the number 2 and pipe that into the viewer so that we get a nice solid blue background, the original background. Now we need to pick the key color. We know how to do that. If we turn on the color selector here, before we just held down the control key and we press the left mouse button to click on a point. But this time we're going to hold shift and control at the same time, and we're going to drag over an area, and we're going to basically select this whole area as the value that we want to use to create the alpha key. So when we let go, you see it selected an average of all of that area that we selected. So now if I come down to the viewer and I press the number 1, it's a pretty clean key. As a matter of fact, for this video, I'm not even going to mess with that, because the main thing was to show you how to create a key with a blue screen rather than a green screen and do some color matching. So we're going to call that done. We will add a little bit of light wrap to it though, so let's bring the Chroma Key up a little. Let's make sure it's selected, press tab, and we want light wrap. Type in light, select it, and of course the light wrap expects a background, which is going to be the snow background. Let's increase the intensity quite a bit so we can see what's happening. Actually see it showing up on the back here, so that means that something is not quite right with our key. So let's go back to the Chroma Key here, and let's change the RGB to alpha and take a look and see what we have. Oh yeah, see where we have a little bit of a problem up here, but that's pretty easy to fix. Let's use the key lift to go from the inside of the white area out towards the black. So we'll use that key lift and we'll try and get rid of some of this stuff here that's on the body of the plane. And we only want to go enough so that it goes away. And that would be right there. I also see that we've got some problems along the edges when I showed the alpha, so we'll fix that too. We can fix that by just bringing our key gain down a little bit until that goes away. And we don't want to go too far because you'll start to mess around with the blades of the airplane. And that looks pretty good. The body's fine and the outline's fine. So let's switch back to RGB. That's still pretty good. I'm not going to mess around with it. It's good enough for this tutorial. And the light wrap now, if we mess around with that and bring up the intensity, yeah, now you see it's just going to affect the edges here, and that's exactly what I'm looking for. The foreground blur, I'm going to just hover over this so you can see the pop-up. It's going to adjust the size of the blur applied to the alpha channel of the foreground. That is how much it will blur onto the outline of your subject matter. So rather than it be 1, I'm going to change this to 2.0 for this project. And I'm going to take a look at where we are here. I think that's way too much. So let's bring it down to about there. And if you want to kind of see what it's doing, you can always click this generate the warp only, and you can kind of see what's going on. So I can see that maybe I have to mess around with my key lift a little bit more. So I'm going to go back into the Chroma Key, go to alpha, and I'm just going to just ever so slightly bump that up. There we go. Go back to RGB. I do want a little spill on the plane, so if I have a little now at this point, I'm just going to call that fine. Yep, I got a little spill and that's fine. I'd have that anyways with the sun reflecting off from it. And I'm going to bring it down just a smidgen. Going to check that out again. That looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. So for this project, I think I'm going to change things around a little bit and use a merge node. So rather than piping the snow into the background there, I'm going to highlight my light wrap and create a merge node with the M key. And of course a merge node expects a background, so let's give it to it. And it still looks pretty good. I'm happy with that key. But now that I look at it, we have a problem here, right? So if I go through this, there's some things that are kind of off. When someone created this aircraft, they had basically colored lights moving around the side of the airplane, which basically are causing us a little bit of grief with this shot, because the snow is kind of pink and the plane itself is kind of a yellowish color. Some highlights of pink and red, but mainly it's a yellowish green. So I've got a pink background and a yellowish green hue to my airplane. So how am I going to match these two items together? Well, we can try and do that with a color grade node. So we have the plane going into the Chroma Key, and before we wrap the snow onto the plane, I think I'm going to add a color grade right in between these two. So select your Chroma Key here. I'm going to right click, go to the color section and grab a color grade node. Now let me make this a tad bit smaller, and let me move this down so I can make this a little bit larger. There we go. So now that I've got the color grade node, I can use that to adjust the black and white. So I could change the blacks in the plane itself by just moving this down, and you see it's pretty much affecting the plane more than the area around it, and as well as the white area here. I can use that to take the brights of the airplane and move them up and down. I'm going to hit the reset key so that it resets it to the default values here. And I can also use the multiply to basically make the plane brighter or darker. But that doesn't help me change the fact that the hue or the light that's spilling on this plane is a different color than the general color of the snow. But that being said, this grade node also can serve as a tool to help us match the colors between the plane and the snow. So let's make sure that we're at the defaults here. I'm going to hit that button again and hit reset to defaults. Now, if I set the black point and the white point of my plane using this tool, and then pick the darkest black in the snow and the brightest white in the snow, it's going to give me a default color grade on the plane that closely matches the snow itself. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, I don't know if many people know this, but if you come over and you don't know what a node does, you can come over to this little question mark, and you'll get a little description of what the node is there, but you can always click on the question mark, and when you click on the question mark, that's going to bring you right to the web page that contains information on that node and tells you a little bit about it and what you can do with it. So that's pretty cool. I like that feature of the properties area of nodes. That's pretty cool. But anyways, back to grading this plane so that it's basically got the same spill colors as the white on the snow. So we need to set the black point and the white point of the plane. So let's take our viewer and let's move it over here, and let's click on the plane and press the number 2 to pipe another connection to the viewer so that we see the source material for the plane. and we're going to zoom in on the window because that's kind of the darkest part on this whole plane. And where it says black point, we're going to click on the black area and create a color picker. Then we're going to hold the shift and the control, and we're going to grab this area. We're going to say this is pretty much the darkest area of my plane. Okay. Now I'm going to come over here and click on the white point, white box. Got a color picker again. And here's where things get a little bit strange, I guess. When this was rendered, whoever rendered this plane actually has some white lights on the plane itself. And these would not be truly white. And these would be whatever color temperature you have on the plane itself. So the fact that these are white, you might be tempted to click on this white or one of the other white lights, but that's not what you want to do. What you're looking for is the ambient white light. So look for ambient white light. In this case, it would be on like the edge of the plane or on the nose cone of the plane, but we're going to use the edge of the plane. We're going to zoom in here. We've got our color picker selected here. I'm going to hold shift and control, and I'm going to say that this is going to be the general color of my whites. When I let go, I have basically defined, okay, let's go back to the viewer and press the number 1. Nothing radically should be different. I guess it is a little bit different. It's kind of a green color. So let's actually slide it over to a different area, maybe 114. Click on the viewer and press the number 2 key again, because it shouldn't be that radical. Must be we had a light, when they rendered this, they had a light kind of flying by on that area. So let's pick that area right there for the white. So we're going to color select again, shift control, and I'm going to grab that area right there. All right. Click on the viewer, number 1, and that's better. Yep. So that's basically set our white and black points on the plane. So now to color match to the snow here, we need to come over here on the snow, press the number 2 key so that we're piping our source material directly to our viewer. And now this is where we're going to basically copy these black and white values from the snow onto the jet. So where it says black, you're going to create a color picker there. And you're going to look for an area that will be the darkest black on this picture. And it's going to be kind of tough on 114. So let's try and find a different area, probably closer. Nope. There we go. A little bit further away. We've got some over here. So let's zoom in. And there's a pretty dark area right here. I guess the darkest we're going to get. And we're going to hold shift and control. And we're going to grab that area right there. Now, we need the brightest white in this picture. And if you look at the picture, you're going to see there's some bright white right here and right there. Of course, it's not white, it's kind of pinkish, but that's the ambient white light that's in this scene. So that's what we want to pick. So we're going to zoom in. We're going to create a color picker here, and we're going to hold the shift and control, and we're going to just designate that area right there as the brightest white in the snow scene. So now I can disconnect this. I'm done with it. And watch what happens when I hit the viewer and press the number 1 key. Check that out. It basically color corrected the ambient light on the plane to match the pinkness of the snow. That's pretty cool. I think that's pretty cool anyways. So that's nice. So what does that do for us? Well, now that we have this, let's go ahead and press the control key and just clean that up a little bit. Okay, now that we have this, we can put another color grade after all of this, like after the merge node. We'll right click and go to color and create another color grade node. And here's the cool part. We can use this node, this color grade 2, to basically set everything back to normal color, or normalize this. So it's got a normalize button, and if we click that, watch what happens over here. It basically just normalized all of our colors for us and gave us a base to start from. So that's pretty cool. And if we go through this, we'll see that everything matches pretty well. Now, one thing is, when they rendered the plane, they had those red lights flying along the side of the plane. So to have totally white snow and some red flying along the plane itself probably is not the perfect situation. So I'm trying to find the area where, yeah, there it is, where you have the most red kind of alongside of the plane. So what we need to do is we need to tone that red down somehow. One way to do that would be to move this stuff up, including the grade node, and maybe turn down the saturation a little bit so that that red isn't quite so heavy. So after the grade node, we're going to highlight the grade node, right click, go to color, and grab a saturation node. Okay, there's that saturation node, and we can just watch that here. We can just turn the saturation of the plane down a little bit. Now, we don't have to go crazy here, but if we go down to about there, it looks pretty good. And then we can go back to the grade 2 node and then hit normalize again, and it will basically normalize all of the values that are in the scene. So it basically gave me a little teeny bit of my pink hue back. It toned down the redness on the side of my plane, kind of matched things in here. If you don't like the brightness, how bright the plane is or how dark it is, you can go back to this grade node, the one that's on your plane itself, and you can use the multiply to turn the plane a little bit darker or a little bit lighter. So the multiply can give you some fine tuning to kind of help you eyeball whether it fits into the scene or not. So that's also pretty cool. And that's it for the tutorial, but I have a little bonus piece for you. Now that you've got the scene all set up, we've got everything color matched, now you can move your viewer over and you can make sure the second grade is selected, right click, and now you can go to the color section, go to the OCIO, and down here you have a look transform, and you can select that. Now check this out. Now that you have that look transform node in there, you can change the look and feel and get a different look for your images, right? So come over here to the look transform, and where it says the look, right now it's got high contrast, right? But you can click this and you can change to different brands of film, you know, Kodak, click, bam, there's the Kodak Porta 400 VC look. I mean, that is pretty cool. I think that is awesome. And I don't know, do you want it to look more old-timey? Maybe the Kodak Max Zoom is what you're looking for. You know, here you go. Just check some of this stuff out and go ahead and play with it. Okay. Whoa, that's definitely weird. That's a weird color film. How about Kodak Ektachrome 200? There you go. It's kind of a darker type film. Okay, so here's a whole bunch of look and feels that you can just drop on it once you've matched the color of your foreground plane with the background. Now you can kind of just mess around with things until you get the look that you want for your video, right? And don't forget, you can always throw a vignette in there too. So let's highlight that. In 2.3.8, you now have Gmix. So you can highlight this node, press tab, and type in vignette, and there's a gmic vignette. So if you got 2.3.8, you'll have the vignette in there too. So you can throw that in there and add a little bit of strength to it and check it out. There you go. Some pretty cool stuff. Hopefully you learned something. I know I threw a lot at you for a beginner, but this is pretty cool stuff. Natron rocks, okay? The next video, we're going to talk about one more video on green screen, and it will be on having an uneven background and not even having the background totally green screen. So we're going to have to put in a roto node to help us clean up the background so that we can pull a clean alpha from it. So hopefully you learned something. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and I'll see you in the next one.